कहो कि मैं इंसानों के परवरदिगार की पनाह मांगता हूं, यानी लोगों के बादशाह की, लोगों के माबूद की, उस बड़े वसवसा डालने वाले की बुराई से जो अल्लाह का नाम सुनकर पीछे हट जाता है, जो लोगों के दिलों में वसवसे डालता है, खा वो जिन्नात में से हो या इंसानों में से।
I would now request all of you to kindly stand up for the national anthem of Islamic Republic of Pakistan. With the permission of the Honorable President of Mehman Professional Forum, we may formally start today's event. My name is Mohammad Yaqub and I am the Chief Operating Officer and Company Secretary of AKD Investment Management Limited. I am currently serving as the Treasurer of Mehman Professional Forum, and I am also going to be the Master of Ceremony for today's event. The topic of our today's event is Pakistan's power sector reforms, challenges and opportunities. I would first of all like to thank our chief guest, His Excellency Special Assistant to Prime Minister on Power with the status of Minister of State, Mr. Mohammad Ali, who has graced us with his presence today. Thank you so much, sir. Along with us today, we have a very learned panel of speakers. We have Mr. Asif Ali Qureshi, who coincidentally had been my teacher as well during my CFA exams. He is currently serving as the Chief Executive Officer at UBL Fund Managers Limited. Next, we have Mr. Rohel Mohammed. He is currently serving as the Chief Executive Officer of Lucky Electric Power Company Limited. Thirdly, we have Mr. Amir Ghaziani, who is currently serving as the Chief Financial Officer at K Electric Limited. Mr. Munis Abdullah Alvi will also join us, but he'll be a bit late. So during that period, Mr. Mohammad Amir Ghaziani is going to be with us. Thank you so much, honorable speakers, for gracing us with your presence. I would now like to call upon Mr. Asif Ismail, who is currently serving as the chairman of SAB, the governing body of Mehman Professional Forum, past president Mehman Professional Forum, and current president Comics, for his opening remarks. Please put your hands together for Mr. Asif Ismail.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent and merciful, and millions of durud salam on Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. On behalf of Mehman Professional Forum and on behalf of Comics, we are extremely thankful to you for sparing your valuable time and gracing the occasion. Mehman Professional Forum, having more than 1,600 professionals, Muhammad Ali Bhai, having CFAs, charter accountant, MBAs, architects, and Comics has more than 500 members, having top industries of Pakistan. So first of all, we would like to welcome our very handsome and very soft-spoken and our childhood friend, Minister for Special Assistant to Prime Minister on Power with the status of Minister of State, Government of Pakistan, Muhammad Ali Sahab. Thank you very much for your kind time here. We welcome Amir Ghaziani Sahab. We welcome Rohil Muhammad, CEO Lucky Cement, Lucky Power. We welcome Asif Ali Qureshi Sahab. Alhamdulillah, we are so grateful to our Power Sector Ministry, who has done great work under the leadership or guidance with Muhammad Ali and with others. They have done great contribution for our loving country by having IPP agreement. Big hands to Muhammad Ali and all his team. Muhammad Ali bhai, 3 days ago when I came back from tennis, I was just having dinner. I saw you wearing blue tie and brown coat and white shirt, looking very good, because I always look for the nice colors of the suit. So at that particular time in your meeting, your cabinet said, and which I have confirmed and assured you as well before you came, when you came here, these guys, these assets of Pakistan, along with Gohar, who is stalwart of comics as well, they have saved 800 billion rupees. Big hands to them through this IPP contract. I have already spoken with Muhammad Ali and he confirmed me as well. Now, what is the problem of Pakistan? I'm not saying, Howard is saying the problem of Pakistan is balance of payment. We manufacture optical fiber cables with the name of premium cables. We were beating India and China, Muhammad Ali bhai. Now we could not. UBL ke AMC ke log baithe mein, they give us 14%, 13%. Muhammad Ali Baba gave us 13%, 14%, whereas when we do the business and we beat India and China, we make 3%. Now we cannot even exports to Etisalas. It's very difficult. Importing 16 raw material from 16 countries of the world, not able to export because of the prices of input costs. Ease in doing business and better energy costs will, inshallah, bring prosperity in this country. As your cabinet has planned for 60 billion of export this year, I would request, because he is always near to Prime Minister and all the top management of the Pakistan, I would request to please focus on the expats remittance as well. Because of them, we are surviving, alhamdulillah. We have 30 billion exports and 30 billion remittance of exports. So when you have planned for 5 years for 60 billion, so why don't, with your good gesture and with your good presentation, we may focus on the 60 billion expats inflow as well. So altogether it would be 120, import 70. So we have instead of CDA, current account deficit, we may listen regarding current account surplus as well. Inshallah, Allah kare wo din aaye कि हमारे पास 50 billion spare भी हो. You need, for that particular purpose, you need to have the good liaising with the expats as well. Send your guys there, our consulate, give them trophies, give them award, give them certificates, and they may plan for 30 billion more remittance as well. If we receive 60 billion, so our liquidity position would be far better the way we are doing. Since one professional can do wonders, Muhammad Ali Bhai, MPF has 1600 professionals. We professionals are dying to serve this beautiful country. So ask them to have our services as well. Muhammad Ali Baba is there, myself is there. Now all the top professionals are loving to serve this beautiful country. One Muhammad Ali can do wonders. So this type of 10 Muhammad Ali can do so much good for our country. With this word, I wish you good health, happiness, prosperity. God bless Pakistan. God bless Maiman Professional Forum. God bless comics. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Asif Ismail Saab. Now I would like to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Asif Ali Qureshi. Mr. Asif Ali Qureshi has over 25 years of experience in the financial sector, spanning banking, economic and financial research, investment banking, consulting, teaching, training, and entrepreneurship. He co-founded 2 stock brokerage companies and an online financial database portal. Mr. Asif's key areas of focus for analytical work include the economy, financial services, and energy. He also served as a member of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council in 2021. He has consulted for the ADB, World Bank, and FCDO. He is a member of the Capital Market Advisory Council of the Ministry of Finance and various committees established by the SECP and Ministry of Finance. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Asif Ali Qureshi.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you very much, Yaqub Saab, and I'm really grateful to this forum for inviting me, although I'm not a Mehman, but still accepting me as a speaker on this equation. So what I've done is I've actually put together a small presentation on this subject of Pakistan's power sector challenges, reforms, and opportunities. So I'll quickly run you through that presentation. I've actually split the presentation into two parts. First part is actually the preamble, just setting the framework in which we should be thinking about energy and more specifically about the power sector. So first of all, we'll cover the preamble, which will include rethinking energy, the future of energy, and finally we'll come to the final topic, which is the main topic, which is power sector challenges, reforms, and opportunities. I really like this quote from Max Planck, who was the founder of quantum mechanics, and he said, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So it's a matter of perspective, how you look at things, and certainly the things start to look differently. So when we think about energy, we actually think about fuels like petrol, diesel, natural gas, and electricity. And the demand for all these energy sources is actually a drive demand. We are not actually consuming all these energy sources per se, we're actually using them to meet certain energy needs. So the demand for energy is actually a drive demand. That's very important because that actually provides the framework in which we can actually think about how to find alternate use of using the excess energy that we've got in Pakistan in the shape of the power sector. So the demand for energy is actually a drive demand. So we are actually fulfilling our major service needs by using these different forms of energy. We are not actually consuming petrol. The primary need for consuming petrol is actually moving from point A to point B. So the need for the underlying energy source, the underlying need is actually is that for the transport, and fuel is only being consumed to actually meet that service need. So transport is a key energy service need, which is met by different forms of energy sources. Likewise, heating, cooking, lighting, cooling, and running electrical appliances and machines. Once we start thinking about energy in terms of the final energy, the final service needs which are being served by energy, we can think about different ways of actually meeting that energy demand, that energy service need. Energy is not just used for meeting certain service needs, it's actually also used for certain products like fertilizer and petrochemicals. So energy is used not just restricted to meeting these service needs that we listed here, but also for meeting the non-energy uses in shape of products like fertilizers and petrochemicals. The same is being represented here when you look at the energy demand, energy supply chain. We start from primary energy supply, then that primary energy is transformed using different processes of refining, and then furthermore it gets transported by using different mechanisms like road transport and gas pipelines and oil pipelines, stuff like that. And finally, it uses the final consumers who could use it for meeting certain energy consumption needs like lighting, space heating, cooking, cooling, and also for meeting the requirements from the industry. So it's actually the final column of energy consumption which drives the demand for primary energy and not the other way around. So we should sort of change the framework through which actually we look at energy, and that actually helps you understand how we can use excess electricity that we've got in Pakistan more productively. And just to put things in perspective, if you look at Pakistan's energy mix, only 25% of energy is actually consumed in its final shape for meeting lighting, cooling, electrical appliances needs of the country. And the remaining 75% is actually, 75% of the final energy is used for meeting other energy needs, other service needs like transport, heating and cooking, heating for industrial purposes, in shape of steam and all, and also about 9% is consumed for meeting the known energy sources. This is based on 2023 data of Pakistan Energy Yearbook. Next, we'd like to look at the key global trends in energy. Anything which happens globally finally finds its way into any country of the world. So something which is happening in India right now might find its way into Pakistan maybe a couple of years down the road. So it is important for energy and for technology for anyone to understand how this process actually works. I know I sort of think about technology and all these global trends. Just a pani ka flow, it actually finds its own way. It makes its way to all the places it needs to go to. So if you look at the global energy sector trends, there are three key trends that I'd like to highlight here. First of all, the future of energy is electric. So most of the energy service needs eventually will be met through electricity. Even in our personal experience, we can actually relate with that. Maybe 15, 20, 30 years ago, we were using gas stoves for warming up our food, for making tea. But we have started using electrical appliances like microwave ovens and electric kettles for meeting that need. So that consumption of natural gas has already shifted to electricity. Likewise, in the future, transport, it has already started to happen. Transport or mobility is being electrified. Water heating, in case of Karachi as well, probably a lot of us have already shifted from gas geysers to twin source geysers, which run on both natural gas as well as electricity. So that has already shifted. There's a shift happening there as well. Likewise, space heating. We are using inverter ACs now for space heating. Earlier, that need was actually met by gas heater, and likewise, in some shape and form, cooking is already, there's some shift, although a much slower shift, a much smaller shift in the trend of cooking towards electricity. And the future is going to be, all these service needs will actually be met through electricity. And we are seeing that happen globally at a much accelerated pace, but the same is going to happen in Pakistan in the future as well. So that is one key trend that we need to keep in mind. Secondly, renewables and battery are disrupting the traditional grids. The traditional grids were built around one-way distribution of electricity, one-way flow of electricity from power generators to the consumer. Now they're bi-directional grids, and they're smarter grids. The distributed generation model is sort of spreading and catching on. So renewables, mainly solar, wind, and other forms of renewable sources like biomass and stuff like that, along with storage, is going to sort of change the way the future electricity grid is going to look like. And this is the third major trend, that the grid of the future is going to be decentralized and distributed. So unlike that unidirectional grid that we are used to traditionally, that is going to undergo a transformation as well. So these are the three key trends. The future of energy is electric. Second, renewables and grid and battery storages are going to change the way grids looked. And this is the third trend, which is a grid of the future, which is decentralized and distributed. So this was the first part of the presentation. Now I'll come to the main topic of Pakistan's power sector. Challenges, reforms, and opportunities. We are already familiar with all the key issues that the sector is actually facing. So what I've done is that I've tried to differentiate between the causes and their effects. So at times there is confusion as to what is the problem. Jesus. So, yeah. So the main causes of the crisis that we are facing in Pakistan when it comes to the power sector are surplus capacity. We're already familiar with that problem. High generation costs, excess transmission distribution losses, billing under collection, cross subsidies, transmission system constraints, and unreliable supply of electricity through the grid. So these are the main causes, and their effects are are visible in shape of major effects like circular debt, the fiscal burden, comparative disadvantages that the industry is facing, and falling energy demand and energy poverty. A lot of people don't have access to cheap energy anymore. So I think it's important to understand the relationships and the distinction between what are the causes and what are the effects. So once we understand, there are a lot of times that we are only addressing the effects and not looking at the causes. So it's important to understand the causes for you to find a solution which is more sustainable and more effective. So these are some charts from the latest State of Industry reports released by our power sector regulator, NEPRA. This one actually reflects the surplus capacity problem that we have in Pakistan against an installed capacity of the NTDC system of more than 42,500 megawatt. The maximum generation that we saw in the country was about 25,500 in the last fiscal year, and the minimum load on a day in Feb, I think, of last year was about 7,000 megawatt. So the delta between 42,500 and 7,000 was actually the excess capacity that we had in the country, which was not being utilized because there wasn't enough demand for energy on that day. Next important factor is to look at is the compositional mix of generation, which has undergone dramatic change. You know, we a lot of times talk about the rising capacity payments in the country, which is a fact. No, there's no reason to deny that. You know, rising capacity payments are actually a problem. But the fact is that variable cost of generation has actually gone down quite dramatically. You know, variable cost used to be close to 8 cents 10 years ago, and that has gone down to about only less than 3 cents in the last fiscal year. Although the quantum of capacity payment per unit has gone up, but it's actually, any businessman can understand, it's actually a better problem to have a problem. It's probably preferable to have a problem where the variable cost is actually lower, because you know the capacity payment, which can be reprofiled and distributed over a longer period of time, so you can take care of that issue. But if your incremental generation cost is very high, then you require a much higher marginal tariff to meet the excess cost of generating that additional unit. So while the overall cost of generation has remained elevated, which is more than 8 cents, which is a high number for the generation cost. I think in India it's less than 4 cents, if I'm not mistaken. It has remained elevated. Its compositional mix has changed dramatically with the increase in capacity payment, capacity purchase price, and a decline in energy purchase price. Another positive trend that has happened, that has emerged in the country, is that the fuel mix of power generation has also changed. If we had the same fuel mix that we had 10 years ago, the cost of generation would have actually been much higher than what it is now today. We were generating about 40% electricity from very expensive furnace oil 10 years ago, and the share of furnace oil has actually gone down to less than 2% in 2024. Likewise, the share of indigenous sources, including coal, hydro, natural gas, and along with nuclear, that has increased to about 3/4. So 75% of our energy, power generation is actually coming from either indigenous sources or from nuclear, which is a much better fuel mix to have than we, and this is as compared to the fuel mix that we had about 10 years ago. This is a much better situation that we see in the country today. This is actually the main cause of the problem that we see in shape of the circular debt menace in the country, which is the excess T&D losses and the billing under collection. These are actual numbers reported by NEPRA in the latest State of Industry report. The T&D losses target was about 11.77%, and the actual number that the discourse delivered was about 18.3%. So that alone translated into a loss of about 276 billion rupees last year, and billing under collection was about 315 billion rupees. So altogether, between T&D losses and billing under collection, the total impact of these inefficiencies was close to 600 billion rupees just in the last fiscal year. This is the anatomy of the circular debt, something which we've already discussed. If you look at the first column on the left, direct contributors to circular debt problem, billing under collection, excess T&D losses, unrecovered costs of the past, our outstanding stock for circular debt, then unpaid subsidies and delays in tariff notification. And there are certain demand-side factors. So direct contributors to circular debt problem, along with demand-side factors, they create sort of a feedback loop which results into this growing circular debt problem. So these are some charts which reflect the trend in the fiscal support which is provided, these are essentially subsidies and the payments that the government is making through the budget to ensure that the circular debt stock remains in check or in line with the agreements that they made with the commitments that they made with the IMF. So since the start of the problem in 2007, when this circular debt started to emerge for the first time, since then till 2024, we've spent about close to 7 trillion rupees, in shape of support to the power sector. And just imagine for a time, just think if this amount was actually spent on maybe social sector, like healthcare, education, and building infrastructure, if 7 trillion rupees had gone into those uses rather than being spent on subsidies alone. And if you look at the chart on the right, it actually shows the circular debt stock. So despite spending close to about 7 trillion rupees, we still have 2.4 trillion rupees in outstanding circular debt. This is the trend in the grid sales, which includes both DISCOs and KE. As you can see, over the last 3 years, we've actually seen a decline in the demand for grid electricity, and there are a lot of factors. Renewables is one of them, but the fact is so much that you can achieve when the economy is growing by less than 2% a year. And this, again, is another problem that the country is facing, which in shape of the transmission constraints, that we have cheap power generation capacity trapped in the south. South means the area around Karachi and in Sindh and Balochistan. So we have some of the cheapest power generating sources located in the south, but we don't have sufficient transmission capacity to transfer that power generation to the main demand center, which is north of Guddu. 80% of Pakistan's demand is actually north of Guddu. But the transmission capacity, while we have close to about 13,000 megawatt of cheap electricity installed here, we can only transfer 4,500 megawatt during summers and about 2,500 megawatts in winters to the north. So a lot of this cheap capacity has remained trapped in the southern region. It remains idle. There's a very, Rohil Saab is going to come next. Inka plant, it's probably sitting idle while the variable cost of his plant's production is very low. So if he didn't have that transmission constraint, maybe Lucky's plant would have been producing even during the winter season, during the lean season. So one of the solutions is, and we'll talk more about the solutions later, but if you think about it, if you have so much cheap capacity located in the south, maybe you can supply it at a lower rate in that region as well. So I think that's something that the government needs to look at and just move away from that fixation with the uniform national tariff regime. So what needs to be done? There are essentially three things, broadly speaking, which are required. A, good governance to eliminate the inefficiencies in the sector. Secondly, we require massive investment because to remove that transmission and distribution bottlenecks, only governance is not going to be enough. So we require cash dollars, and that can only come from the private sector. And the third is that we need demand. I think these are, broadly speaking, the three main things that we require. More specifically, the key reforms which I think are needed are unified energy planning and regulatory framework. The entire reason for presenting that preamble at the beginning and presenting a different way of thinking about energy was that we actually require a unified approach towards thinking about energy and not just operating in the silos that, there's a petroleum ministry which has very different objectives compared to the power ministry, which is entangled in different set of challenges. So we require a unified approach, which means there should be one energy ministry, there should be a unified regulator, and we should be planning in an integrated energy framework and not in shape of forecasting demand for individual fuels. That should be the outcome and not the way of forecasting demand for future energy. Then dismantling nationally informed tariff regime, I've explained the reason for that as well, that we've got so much cheap capacity installed in the south, then why, and we can't use that in the north, we can't transfer that. If we can't transfer that, so we can at least use that cheaper electricity in the south and increase the productivity of the southern region. Removal of cross subsidies, one of the reasons, if you think about the actual national uniform tariff, that should be, the consumer tariff, that should be close to about 34, 35 rupees. I think probably you and I and most of the industry will be very happy to pay that tariff. But the problem is that 50% of the grid electricity goes to the domestic residential sector, and about 3/4 or 2/3, and not 3/4, 2/3 of those domestic sectors are massively subsidized. So there's a very small number of domestic consumers and industry and commercial consumers who are, bearing the burden of subsidies in shape of cross subsidies to those domestic consumers and also to the agriculture sector. So I think it's important for the government to charge only the fair price of energy, delivering energy to the consumers, and not putting the burden of cross subsidies, which should be coming directly from the budget and not via other consumers in shape of higher tariffs charged to those consumers. Then privatization of transmission and distribution sector, I think nothing. We've seen that happen. Every time there's a change in the government, we talk about, okay, let's change the boards of the distribution companies, and they'll dramatically solve the problem. That has never happened, and that is never going to happen. The way the private sector operates, the private sector thinks, is very different with the way the governments are designed to work. So without privatization of these transmission distribution sector, I don't think that we can achieve any significant, meaningful level of efficiency improvement. And finally, in terms of generating the demand for power, we need to think more about electrification of energy use, maybe encourage electrification of transport, beginning with electrification of public transport, then moving on to space heating, and then water heating and stuff like that. I'm a very big proponent of private sector. I think we've got amazing success stories in Pakistan. KE is one of them. They've achieved dramatic reduction in transmission distribution losses, and not just reduction in T&D losses. The grid quality has improved as well over since privatization. And also, the quality of service in general has dramatically improved since privatization. And this success story of privatization is not limited to the power sector. We've seen the same thing happen in telecom, via deregulation and privatization. We've seen the same thing happen in cement as well. So any sector where the government has taken a back seat and let the private sector do its job, we've seen the private sector deliver excellent results. So I'm a big proponent of privatization. I think that is the only way forward, deregulation and privatization, to solve the problems that the country is facing. With that, I'd like to thank you for listening to this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Asif Ali Qureshi, for your wonderful insights. A couple of points that you highlighted. The main is the transition of sources of energy from the conventional burning of the fossil fuels to the alternate sources of energy. That is a pertinent thing, and it is like transitioning very rapidly globally right now. Another thing that you mentioned was the balance of power for the power sector. We need to balance the power in the sector as well. Another thing that you highlighted was the privatization of the companies, the LESCO and every other power producing companies in Pakistan. Coincidentally, I was had a meeting with someone in the privatization commission, and I think these companies are already on their agenda right now. So, sir, thank you so much again. Next, I would like to call upon Mr. Rohil Mohammed Sahab. His career spans over 35 years in general management, business development, strategy, financial planning, and people development. He has held various C-suite positions in companies focusing on a diverse range of activities from chemicals to energy. He is currently the CEO of Lucky Electric Power Company, a 660 megawatt IPP, a subsidiary of Lucky Cement. Prior to this, he was the CEO of Hub Power Holding Limited, a subsidiary of Hubco, Pakistan's largest IPP, where he was responsible for managing the growing portfolio of Hubco, evaluating onshore and offshore acquisitions, project financing, economic evaluation of all growth projects, financial re-engineering to support the growth vision of the company. Prior to Hubco, he was the CEO of Agro Fertilizers. He has also served on the board of various Agro Group companies. In addition, he has also served on the boards of K Electric, Pakistan Institute of Corporate Governance, British Overseas Schools, KP Energy, and others. He is a CFA charter holder and holds an MBA degree from the Institute of Business Administration, Pakistan. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Rohil Mohammed. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for inviting me to this forum. So, as the topic is reform, challenges and opportunity in the power sector, I think it's a very complex subject which I think Mohammed Ali will certify, because lots of commitments, for example, to buy LNG to the Chinese, etc. So very complex issues which we have sort of inherited over decades and decades, and obviously he's trying to solve them in a few months. So let's see. So what I'll do is I'll try to simplify it and try to talk about a few key issues. Some of them Asif has already touched, so I'll try to be a little faster on those ones, which you've already heard. And let's see how we can take this. So before I get into the issues, I think a couple of positives I want to highlight. I think the last wave of generation that came about through the 2015 policy, almost 15,000 megawatts, the choice of fuel was changed. In the past, it used to be RFO was the main choice, which cost maybe in today's price would be about 25 rupees a unit in terms of energy, and was changed to coal. So almost 2/3 of the new capacity which has come in is coal-based. And there the price, if it is on Thar, is around 10. If it's imported, it's around 14. Unfortunately, we'll talk about it later, that the full benefit of this has not been taken because of the transmission grids, etc. The other thing is renewables. And the first renewable that came in, I think, was Orlu or Fauji maybe 10, 12 years ago. There, the original tariff was something like 14 cents, and today is down to 4 cents. So we obviously need to take advantage of this. Although there are issues on the transmission side to fully utilize these assets which we already have. So moving on, obviously the first issue which is there, which we've talked about, is the lack of demand. So I tried to pull out some numbers, and in 2015 our demand was something like 105 billion units, or 105,000 gigawatt hours as it's known in the industry. And at that time we were looking at, we were in the boom. We said we'll grow at 6-7%. This is the PMLN government at that time. And if I just take a 6-7% growth, this year the demand should have been like 200 billion units. And if that was the case, we wouldn't be having this conversation, because everybody would be very happy about, everything was getting utilized. Even the IGCF, which is the Integrated Energy Plan, which was prepared, I think this is the first time, or maybe it was 2019 or whatever. Even 5 years later, the projection was 150 billion units in 2025. And today, as you know, Asif has shown the chart, it's 110, 120 billion units. So that is one of the key issues. And the other issue was that the supply that was planned was for the peak demand. So peak meaning summer, and then the hottest period of that day, say 12 o'clock or 2 o'clock, rather than taking a mid type of number and try to plan for something for the peak, or even load shed during that peak. You can't put up capacity which will get utilized maybe 10% of the time or 20% of the time. So that was another sort of policy flaw that came about. Obviously, what happens then is that the capacity payment, and I'll talk about that, then gets divided over a lesser number of units, obviously inflating the cost of power as such. Lack of demand, obviously, Dr. Asif mentioned, we have low industrial activity, GDP growth. Then obviously people, when prices went up, they conserved energy, especially in the household level, at the consumer level. And obviously solarization or renewables has also played its part, both at the industrial side as well as in the household, as well as in for example, in rural areas in terms of tube well, etc. I think the important thing which I would like to emphasize at the IPP is that this demand supply is done by government NTDC or NEPRA, rather than any one IPP out of 100 trying to manage, trying to do a demand supply thing. Now, this topic has been in the press, I think, the most in terms of capacity payment. So I thought I'll take a couple of minutes to explain this if you are already not aware of it. So any business that you do has a variable cost to it and there's a fixed cost to it. So variable is no issue. Every time you produce a unit or take power, only the fuel part, or let's say if you are in the textile business, if you're making a shirt, then the cloth, the thread, etc., are variable. But there is a fixed part of the business as well. So the salaries to be paid, maintenance, debt servicing, rent of the premises, etc. Those have to be covered through the output as such. Now, what used to happen prior to 1994, before the private investors came into the power generation, was that PSDP, or the government funds, were used to put up these power plants. So obviously there's a notional cost of capital, but there was no real cost of capital because it was through PSDP. So the capacity payment was practically very low in terms of maybe small amounts of O&M payments. But now, if you invite the private sector, there is a real cost, and that real cost has to be paid. On top of that, the government was the sole buyer. So if I were to put up a plant and the government is the sole buyer, without any lender or investor will require that some guarantee of offtake is required. Otherwise, there won't be any financial close. And with government being the sole buyer, the take or pay concept originated from there, that you have to take those volumes, otherwise where will they sell that volume to? It's the same thing as you take a long-term lease on a car or house. That rental or lease payment has to be made irrespective of how many hours you actually, or how many days you actually lived in that house, or how many hours you ran that car, basically. In fact, in my opinion, obviously if the government was not the sole buyer, if a private investor had to forecast the demand, they would put up so many buffers that actually the capacity cost would actually have gone up. Here, knowing that it will be fully utilized, and if the demand-supply planning had been okay, that would be the most efficient capacity cost. Otherwise, as an investor, you'll say, okay, maybe in the first year, the utilization will be 50%, then go to 60, or whatever the numbers are. And the lesser number of units you divide, then the per unit cost would have gone up as such. The other issue with capacity payment is all dollar denominated, because you had almost 15,000 megawatts coming in 2015. And not only did the banking capacity banking sector didn't have the capacity, but also they didn't have the dollars as well. And State Bank insisted that a dollar funding be arranged for at least 50% of the debt as well, or the total dollar requirement. So the Chinese stepped in and there were some Chinese owners as well, but most of the debt were given by Chinese banks through Sinosure, etc. Now, what happens in rupee terms is that if the dollar has, in the last, say, 6-7 years, divided by almost 300%, gone 3 times, from, say, 100 to almost 300. So automatically, that capacity payment, which is 90% dollar denominated, has also gone up 3 times as such. So that is another issue. The other final point on capacity is that the life of a power plant is minimum 25, if not 30. Nuclear is even higher, 50. But the debt was denominated only or required for 10 years. At that time, beyond 10 years, the debt was not available. But now, for example, for renewables, ADB is even giving 20 years. So I think that is something that needs to be worked on to bring down the capacity payment. Moving on, in terms of transmission, I think Asif touched upon it. So I think the transmission and distribution I've looked at 3 levels. First is the south-north corridor, or you can call it the main motorway. So there, obviously, because of the constraints, and it is even the HVDC, which was put up for 4,000 megawatts, if you look at the NEPRA report, it's only utilized 33% in the last 1 year. So there is obviously an issue with NTDC and PCC, which is not after the investment, is not able to utilize the entire capacity. So what is happening is that 24 rupee LNG plants are running. If I pick up the demand today is about 11,000 megawatt, look at the NPCC screen as such. LNG is 2,500 megawatts of LNG is running, 1,200 megawatts of Saiwal coal is running, and Port Qasim, China Power, Lucky are all shut. In fact, even the Thar plants, which are costing incrementally 4 rupees, are operating at half load. So our estimate is that this is at least a 200 billion per year impact because of transmission. The second level is local transmission issues in Punjab, which are a lot of the plant or requirement is at 132 kV, which they don't have, which the step down is not available. So from time to time, you're running RFO and gas plants to that. Final level is the renewable. And I looked up and obviously the renewable issue is that it fluctuates a lot during the day and night and during the seasons as well. I looked up the numbers, and just to simplify the numbers, so if these wind plants had been able to generate, say, 100 units, the last 1 year, they've only ran for 60% of the time. Or rather, the evacuation of power was only 60% of what was there. Then, on top of that, NPCC paid them for another 25-30% for not running the plants, which is almost 40 billion. And then the generator was penalized, or the IPP was penalized for the last 10-15%. So while we talk about renewables, etc., unless we fix this issue, I'm not sure how we will absorb more renewable into the system. Then the high T&D losses, Asif touched upon them, and there was this news article just a week ago, and this is all from the NEPRA report. It's 660 billion rupees of transmission and distribution losses and non-collection, which are not budgeted also. So in fact, this is not in the tariff, but it's probably in the government subsidy, which the government has to pay to keep the circular debt into control. So just to give you an idea of the tariff breakdown, the capacity payment, which we talk about, this is from the NEPRA multi-year tariff for the year 24-25. This is obviously based on projected demand. So 18 rupees is the capacity payment. The energy charge is about 10 rupees. The distribution margin, which is 3.68. And this is based on the standard 14-15% loss, not the 27-28, which the actual discos are incurring. And that's why I said the 660 billion is not included in this tariff number. And then if you see at the retail level, prior to any adjustments for cross subsidies, etc., the number is like 35 rupees. But then you have a host of surcharges. For example, the first one, surcharge and an additional surcharge. These are related to the interest cost of the previous year's circular debt, and that interest is loaded to current customers as well. That's almost 4 rupees per unit. If you look at the sales tax and income tax, that's almost 11 rupees. So I think we were just discussing before this that actually FBR has got a bonanza, because without doing anything, because it's denominated in as a percentage, so you increase the tariff last July, and suddenly all that extra money is going to, which is I think almost 800 billion. They must have had a bonanza of 300 to 400 billion rupees from this issue as well. So going forward, obviously, number one issue of this is demand. I think I would like Mohammed to say that, okay, all of this is fine, but where do we go from here? What is next? And I think demand will play a big issue for that. So obviously, rescheduled debt, I don't have the numbers, but I saw in the press that target is almost 4 rupees per unit. In terms of surcharges and taxes, another 5 rupees is possible. For the T&D, I think, I remember Mohammed Ali had originated when he was in the caretaker minister, these management contracts to kickstart this process, because the potential, as we saw, is almost 600 billion. Obviously, it can't happen overnight, but just as KE has done it, maybe over a 10-year period, this should be back to zero, basically. The transmission bottlenecks, which I mentioned, and also there's also an issue of the LNG contract, which has a take or pay, but hopefully it's coming for renegotiation next year, so maybe they can do something about it. The final issue is, of course, it's a small number though, but the net metering number, I mean, if KE can buy renewable power at 10 rupees, why should I get 41 rupees for as a domestic household with net metering as such? So I think that needs to be rationalized as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rohil Saab, for your wonderful insight. Now, I would like to introduce to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Mr. Amir Ghaziani. Mr. Amir Ghaziani is a seasoned executive with over 25 years of experience driving business growth, leading high-performing teams, and navigating complex regulatory landscapes. His expertise spans finance, corporate strategy and planning, risk management, regulatory compliance, and business turnarounds. Since joining KE in 2008, Amir Saab has held various senior roles, culminating in his appointment as Chief Financial Officer in 2018. He also serves as the chairman of the K Solar Board and is also a board member of KE Venture Company. Amir's professional credentials include fellowship from ICAP and certification as a director from PICG. He began his career as A. Ferguson and Company, a member firm of PwC, and has also done executive programs from renowned institutions like INSEAD. Please join hands in welcoming Mr. Amir Ghaziani.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. A very good evening to all. It's an honor and pleasure to be here to present this very important subject in front of our distinguished panelists and the guest of honor, Mohammad Ali Saab. And I really want to congratulate the Women Professional Forum for inviting me and having this very good session on power sector reforms challenges. So let me start with the presentation. I think the subject, both the panelists, both the speakers have presented, and the subject and the issues, reforms are very common. So I'll be speaking again and again the same thing. So I'll try to be quick so that we don't repeat the same thing. So the presentation is basically divided into the sector challenges and recommendation, and then because we are the only private utility in Pakistan, so the experience we had, what we have done good throughout the journey, and how it brought the benefits to the customers. So we'll talk about that, because our belief is also that the power sector solution is privatization, and a lot of good things have been done in the privatization journey by K Electric. So we'll discuss that so that it'll be good for the audience to understand what private sector does and how it will bring good to the power sector. So this is the snapshot of power sector. As we speak earlier, the panelists already mentioned that the capacity is the issue. If you really see from 2015, the CAGR of generation capacity and its net addition in the generation capacity is 7% on year basis. So if you see, there are a lot of plants that are decommissioned during the process also, but the net addition is 7%, whereas if you see the peak demand growth on year basis, it's only 2%. So there is a clear difference which shows that the capacity was added much higher than the growth, and the issue comes out to be the capacity. And when we say the peak demand of 2% growth, let me tell you that the industrial growth is even lesser than 2%. The industrial growth for these years is only 1.3%. So the most of the growth is in the domestic sector, which is residential and commercial, where there are issues related to recovery also, and losses, technical and theft losses also comes into the residential and domestic sector. The bottom graph shows the issue which we talked about earlier, that the elephant in the room is the capacity. If you see the breakup of energy charges and capacity charges, you see 2/3 is in the capacity, and which is because of the low growth and underutilization, and there are a lot of issues related to macroeconomic factors, like the rupee depreciation also had a very big impact on the capacity charges, because a lot of capacity is dollar-based, and there is a US foreign debt is behind behind those capacity charges, because when you put a new project, obviously you have to have foreign debt, and then these debts are of 10 years or 12 years term, so you have to pay. And when rupee depreciates, a lot of impact comes out in PKR on the capacity charges. We have been managing energy cost very well, and if you see, because of the addition of state-of-the-art efficient plants in the power sector, the energy cost went down, obviously, but obviously growth is really the challenge. The T&D losses, that's a distribution side of the issue where the circular debt arises, and if you see the T&D losses overall, it was 19% in 2015, but now in 2024 it has started again to increase because of the increase in tariff, and because of that the affordability obviously is an issue. People are not able to pay their bills, so they are stealing electricity, and obviously on top of it recovery loss is again one of the very important area where the circular debt is getting the effect. So the challenges, as I said, on the generation side, there is a high cost of generation, which is also, I mentioned that the overall energy mix is better, but still there is a 25% of the power generation which is on imported fuel. So RLNG is being consumed even now, and there are imported coal plants also. So there is a potential here, which we'll discuss in the recommendation also, that we can bring renewables, and we can also convert imported coal to the local coal, through which we can bring down the imported fuel component, and then there will be a benefit on the foreign exchange, which we can save from conversion of local coal, and maybe by bringing in low-cost renewables. So I will come to that later in the slide. On the circular debt and inefficiency of DISCOs, which is again a very important area, which reflects in the cost of the electricity also, and we all know that there is a component which is PHL surcharge. That is being billed to the customers, in fact, to the customers of Karachi also, and that is basically only because of the inefficiencies of DISCOs, where the circular debt financial charge is being charged to all the customers, obviously including KE customers also in Karachi. So that shows that because the circular debt remains there, definitely there will be some component which will come in again and again every year. So that area needs to be sorted out. The other issues related to low growth, I think the important thing is, yes, the price of electricity is a major issue, but there are a lot of other issues which needs to be sorted out, because it's not just the price of electricity because of which the growth is not there, but there are a lot of other issues. We have seen 9-cent tariff in the recent past, but the growth, the export remained at the same number which was there before also. So even though a lot of things have been done in the past, incentives, incremental packages were also given, but there was no significant increase in the export. So yes, the tariff should be, the electricity tariff should be reduced or should be lower, but then there are a lot of other areas where the government policies and incentives like tax holidays, tax incentives needs to be announced, so that the growth and industrialization starts, and then the growth comes from that side also. There are issues on the legal side and policy side also. We are discussing with the government also, and I think there's been working going on the legislation where the theft is still we cannot lodge FIR, so it's not a bailable or non-bailable offense. So that needs to be sorted out, and government is working on that. NEPRA, This is again a challenge where a lot of things on the tariff side needs to be sorted. We have filed our tariff since 2022, and we are facing a lot of delays in approvals at the NEPRA side, which also affects a lot of investments in the infrastructure, in the businesses, and obviously there is a working capital cost which comes because of those delays. So I think a lot of things have been done at the NEPRA so that the efficiency comes and the tariff settings are being done properly and in the quickest possible time. This is, I've already discussed privatization of state-owned discos, as I said, is one of the key area. Then there is another important measure which government is trying to take, the shifting of captives to grid. This is very important for the growth, because if the low-cost gas is discontinued at the captive, then obviously captive will be moving to the grid, and then that growth will increase, and then there will be some positive impact of the utilization of the capacity cost. So although there are various discussions going on in favor of keeping it, but there are a lot of generation plants which are very low in efficiency, and they're utilizing the subsidized gas. So definitely there will be good impact on the utilization of capacity costs through shifting those into captive. Then there has been in winter packages or incremental packages which government is doing. There was discussion on the Asif Saab mentioned that there is a shift on the electric consumption as the geysers are being shifted to electric, and the gas which was basically wasted on geysers. These kind of things are happening, and I think to that reason, government has recently announced a winter package, which has basically which will benefit the consumers, because the winter package is having a very lower tariff. That's 25 rupees. If you consume more electricity or incremental electricity, then the tariff is lower. I think that will enable the shift to electric consumption, and again, it will help in having a growth. The last numbers we have in December, almost 4% is the growth because of that winter package. So I think these kind of things are very important to shift consumption to power and on grid, and that will help, and that will resolve to some extent, obviously not to the large extent, but to some extent the growth will be managed through that. There is legal framework which I mentioned is very important to curb theft and improve recoveries. So government is also working on that policy side. And then the CTBCM, which is the talk of the town. I think the competitive supply market is very important, but it has to be rightly done, so that if there is any additional cost is being charged, but it should not be that it is not viable. So it has to be done in a very proper manner, so that it gets flourish, and then the people gets also benefit, but at the same time the cost should not be onto the existing power consumers because of that shift, as capacity is an issue. So that's on the policy measures side. Regulatory reforms, as I said, NEPRA capacity building is very important, and because of that, there has been a lot of issues on the delay side, and then the working capital costs, and these things are basically incurred by the licensor. We face the same because of these reasons. So there are a lot of things which needs to be done on the regulatory side. Operational intervention is also which I believe need to take that. Probably the direct subsidy is where the government should consider or look for, because right now the cross-subsidy element, which has been also mentioned by Asif Saab, that cross-subsidy is there in the tariff, and industrial consumers' tariff is higher because of that cross-subsidy, and domestic consumers' tariff is being subsidized. So the industrial consumers are taking the hit of cross-subsidy. So in fact, I think the good thing is that we should, or government should be providing subsidy, direct subsidy through provincial government to those low-end consumers. We have a lot of areas like Liari, Orangi Town, Katipadi, where obviously the income of those areas or of those citizens are not that high, and they are not able to pay the bills. The affordability is really an issue and challenge. So instead of giving subsidy, because although their tariffs are lower, but then even then they are not able to pay that. So I think the solution to this problem is that if a direct subsidy is given to those areas through provincial government or federal government, then probably the cross subsidy will eliminate, and there will be a better tariff for industry, and then again the growth issue can be resolved through that also. So these are the things I think we have already discussed all the things in earlier presentations also. So I'll come directly to the privatization, what we have done good through privatization. So KE was privatized in 2005, and since then $4.6 billion have been invested in the infrastructure, in the generation, transmission, and distribution across the value chain. And through this, a lot of good things have been achieved. We have basically brought down the transmission and distribution losses from almost 40% to 15%. The amount of savings which we had because of this is almost 700 billion rupees, which we have saved from that. So that's the benefit of privatization. Had this been not done, it would have been in the circular debt. So KE has zero contribution to the circular debt. The circular debt of Thank you. The circular debt of 2.5 billion is only of the ex-swap that disclosed. There is not a single rupee contribution from K Electric. Then there is a direct finance for foreign investment, which was done through foreign investors, Al Jumaah, NIG, which are Saudis, and Kuwaitis. They have invested initially $361 million in the company, and then in 2009, IGCF through Abraj, through IGCF also invested $361. So, and then government also. So $700 million also was invested and injected in the company. So again, privatization benefit, we all know that the FDI which comes, and then obviously it helps government of Pakistan. Then a lot of investment, $4.6 billion, as I said, is unprecedented in any power sector in a single utility or single company. So that's huge investment that has been done. The shareholders have not taken any single rupee as a dividend. They have invested all that money, whatever the profits we made in the past, all of that has been invested in the company. So for the benefit of customers, again, the benefit of privatization. These are the facts, numbers, which tells you that what good has been done. If you see the generation capacity, almost 2,000 megawatt have been added since 2005. Efficiency, which was as low as 30%. The efficiency means that the fuel you consume to generate electricity was, at that time in 2005, was 30% efficiency of the plants. Now it has been increased to 46%. Grid stations, 22 new grid stations have been added. Almost 100% of the transmission capacity has been added. The load shed, we have a segmented load shed policy where we do load shed based on the categorization of area, the low loss area, the medium loss area, the high loss area. So initially in 2005, only 6.6% of the Karachi was load shed free. The rest of it was all being load shed. But now, so 70% of the area is load shed free. So you see, because of the reduction in transmission and distribution losses, the improvement, which is very evident that a higher number of feeders are load shed free. And this is very much known in the communities. If you go in areas, people will tell you that if you don't steal electricity and you pay on time, you will get uninterrupted power. So the communication and education has been great, so everyone knows that. Distribution capacity, almost 2.3 times of the capacity we have added. Transmission and distribution losses, as I said, the aggregated, not only the loss side, the theft we have detected, but we have recovered also from customers. So it's the aggregate technical and commercial loss, including the recovery side, both have been improved since 2005 significantly. And it's unprecedented. No discos, you will see that none of the disco has improved that. And then on the technology side, on the digitalization side, a lot of new things have been done. You must be using KE Live application. We are on mobile app. We have a lot of online channel payments available for all the customers. Our meter readers are now taking meter reading on smart handheld devices. We have converted all our industrial consumers on 100% on smart meters. So a lot of digitalization and technology-driven projects have been done, which is for the benefit of customers. And then the safety is also very important. You must be seeing our field forces. They are with all their gadgets and safety equipments. So they are also following all safety protocols, and safety is our first and foremost priority. So going forward, we are also working on customers' interaction. A lot of things have been already done on digitalization. As I said, WhatsApp has been added, through which communication is being done. So right now, 1.8 million customers are now communicating with us on WhatsApp, almost 891,000 on KE Live. So a lot of digital communication have been done and interactions have been done through digital media. Future plans, we are planning to invest $2 billion in next 7 years. That's our plan, which we have submitted to the regulator also. And again, this is very much on the distribution side, because lots of investment have been done on the aerial bundle cable, because of which the distribution loss has improved. We are targeting, obviously, Karachi is the economic hub, and at the same time, a lot of immigrants from other cities are coming into Karachi for business. So there is a natural growth, organic growth in the city, and the customers and on the residential side, it is continuously increasing. Although industry, which is a good premium customer, there is no significant growth in the industrial side, but the residential and domestic side is continue to increase, and that remains a challenge for us also, because there are a lot of slums in Karachi. Almost 900 slums are in Karachi, and the growth in those peripherals of Karachi is significant, and there has been no civic law and order or the civic facilities in those areas. These areas are unplanned. So that continues to be a challenge, but then obviously the investment is required on those areas so that we stop stealing electricity. We provide them a good service and electricity. So the investment which is required on that side is almost $2 billion, which has been submitted to the regulator, and the tariff and the approvals are in process. So hopefully will be approved soon, and then KE will be investing in next 7 years on this side. Our focus is also on renewables. As I said, KE's power cost is high normally compared to the national grid, but then there is an important factor which everyone should be taking into account. KE's power cost, excluding nuclear, if you compare it with national grid has a nuclear power plant, nuclear cost of generation, and then hydel cost of generation. And if you take that out from in national grid, I have a slide. Yeah. So KE's generation is more or less close to overall national grid. If you see the overall capacity power purchase price, which is DISCOs are having, is 31 rupees. And if you take that out, if you take the national grid, if you take the hydel and nuclear, the cost of KE is almost comparable. So because we can't put hydel directly, or we can't put nuclear, it can be done only by government. So that's where you see the cost of KE seems like higher than national grid. But then if you take those two out, then the cost of K electric is lower. Coming back to the renewables, so we are cognizant of that fact that the cost of generation is high, and it's mainly because of RLNG, which has been supplied by the government of Pakistan to us instead of indigenous gas. Let's hope that if captive indigenous gas is moved to K electric, to grid, then obviously the cost of generation of K electric will go down also, and then obviously the benefit will maybe, depending on the government's decision, can be passed onto the consumers also. But as I said, we are cognizant of the fact that the cost of generation is high, so we are working on renewables. We have recently finalized the bidding process, the competitive bidding process of 640 megawatt plants, and the bidding was very competitive and very low. In fact, the lowest hybrid project which we had was 8.9 rupees per unit. So if we take those into our fleet, another one was 3.4 cent, almost 9 rupees, and the other one was 11 rupees. So all these three projects of 640 megawatt, if we take that in our fleet, obviously that will bring down the cost of generation of K electric, and it will not help just K electric to bring the cost of generation down, but it will also help government and the entire national grid, because as I mentioned, that there are still RLNG plants which are operating, and there are imported coal plants which are operating. The cost of generation of this projects are even lower than the energy cost. So obviously on an overall basis, there will be savings based on those projects if we can commission those projects as soon as possible. So the approvals of these projects are still with NEPRA, and we are convincing NEPRA that this should be done as soon as possible, and the benefit will go to the government of Pakistan as well as to customers of Karachi and overall consumers of Pakistan. So these are the projects which we are working. In addition to that, we are also planning to have a hydel. A lot of discussion have been done with the project companies of hydel in the up north, so that we can wheel that power, and we can add those power in the future when the demand will grow. So the last slide is basically what key considerations should be for the successful privatization. I think, as I mentioned, that a lot of things have been done on the regulatory side, on the tariff setting side, which is a real issue right now. We have been given tariff in the last control period. We have discussed with NEPRA. There have been a lot of issues on that side. I hope this time the tariff which NEPRA will approve will have a better tariff, at least from the sustainability perspective, so that it will be good for the new privatization companies, of new privatized companies. Government has the plan to privatize DISCOs, so it is very important for government and for the new investors to see the tariff is viable and sustainable, so that they come in and invest in the distribution companies. So this is very important. There are a lot of things on the policy and regulatory framework side, like CTBCM, which I mentioned. Yes, this needs to be introduced, but it should be introduced with all the right ingredients. Then there are other areas where IGCAP, the integrated planning, the transmission side, the constraint which Roel mentioned about, that need to be catered for. These are the things I think financial viability I've already covered. So these are the things which are required and considered for the successful privatization going forward. And it is important so that the distribution, largely distribution circular debt issue can be resolved. So thank you very much for this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ghaziani, for your wonderful presentation, and congratulations for the remarkable achievement of zero circular debt by KE. We now have with us Syed Monis Abdullah Alvi, who is serving as the Chief Executive Officer of KE Electric. During his tenure, he has led the company through a business transformation, as witnessed from the presentation of Mr. Amir Ghaziani. He is a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants. Please join me for welcoming him for a few quick words. Thank you so much, sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I think a lot has been discussed already. I've heard Asif Qureshi Saab and Ruhail and Amir about KE, so मैं तो अब इस पर ज़्यादा बात नहीं करना चाहूँगा, बस मैं सिर्फ यही कहूँगा कि अब हम बहुत एक मुश्किल दौर से गुजर रहे हैं, एक रियलिटी, एंड दे आर वेरी डिफ़िकल्ट चॉइसेस. सो जो भी हमें करना है वो हमें ये देख के करना है कि क्या हम जिस तरह सिस्टम चल रहा है, क्या कैन वी अफोर्ड टू रन द सिस्टम लाइक दिस, एंड दोज चेंजेस आर रिक्वायर्ड. Or we are working with the government very closely. Again, we have the benefit of interacting with Mohammad Ali Saab, and मैं सिर्फ ये जानता हूँ कि जितनी clarity in terms of what we have to do है इस वक्त इस level पे, और ये जो शायद अच्छा हुआ ये politician नहीं है, क्योंकि अगर ये politician होते तो ज़्यादा मुश्किल होती है. तो हमें शायद इस किस्म के और लोग चाहिए जो कि सही फैसले कर सकें, और जिससे कि वी कैन सी द चेंजेस विच आर इम्पॉर्टेंट टू रन द कंट्री ऑन अ फुटिंग जो सस्टेनेबल हो. और मुझे यकीन है कि और भी जो कुछ चीज़ें आप लोग बहुत जल्दी सुनेंगे, इट विल बी फॉर द बेनिफिट ऑफ द कंट्री. और आमिर ने बहुत सारी बातें कर ली, और मुझे पता है कि बाकी सारी जो प्रॉब्लम है वो यही है कि हमें किसी तरीके से पावर सेक्टर जहाँ तक है, वी हैव टू इंक्रीज़ द डिमांड, और अगर हम वो कर लेंगे देन विल बी एबल टू रिड्यूस द कॉस्ट आल्सो. और उसके बाद फिर हम देखते हैं कि ग्रोथ कैसे आती है. सो वी आर बिटवीन अ रॉक एंड अ हार्ड प्लेस राइट नाउ. दिस इज़ द रियलिटी. हम जो भी कहें तो हमें पावर सेक्टर पर्टिकुलरली के अंदर जो आई थिंक फ्यूचर को देखना है, जिस पे कि इस वक्त प्राइवेटाइजेशन एक है, कॉस्ट ऑफ जनरेशन, रिन्यूएबल्स, ये सारी चीज़ों के ऊपर एक फोकस के साथ काम हो भी रहा है. बट अगेन मैं समझता हूँ कि मैं ये समझता हूँ कि इफ़ यू लुक एट द चेंजेस जो होने जा रही, जो हो रही, जो बातें हो रही हैं ना, उससे शायद उसका इम्पैक्ट फ़ौरन नहीं आएगा. ये भी हम सबको समझना चाहिए. तो अगर हमें आज इस बात पे बेट लगानी हो कि क्या ये जो हो रहा है इसका इम्पैक्ट होगा बाद में, सो आई वुड से यस. एंड मैं आज नहीं बहुत दिन से ये कह रहा हूँ कि मुझे इंशाल्लाह ये नज़र आ रहा है कि जो यूटिलिटी इलेक्ट्रिसिटी यूटिलिटी की जो प्राइसिंग है, इट इज़ गोइंग टू कम डाउन. अभी आज भी अखबार में लगा हुआ है, बड़ी खुशी की बात है कि हमारा जो एफसी जो फ्यूल सरचार्ज है उसमें कोई 5 रुपए की कमी है, और मेरे ख्याल में ये फिनोमेना भी कुछ अरसे तक चलेगा, और उसके बाद जो भी निगोसिएशन हो रही है उसका इम्पैक्ट आएगा, जो प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं जिनका डेट पे हो रहा है उसका इम्पैक्ट आएगा. सो द गुड थिंग इज़ दैट इलेक्ट्रिसिटी प्राइसेस विल कम डाउन. और वैसे मोहम्मद अली साहब अगर 9 सेंट पे ले आएंगे तो मेरे ख्याल में फिर उनको वज़ीर आज़म ही बना देना चाहिए, क्योंकि इसके बाद जो है फिर ज़बरदस्त जो है. तो मैं सिर्फ यही कहूँगा कि वो बड़े घिसे पिटे शेर हो गए, लेकिन हमें वही पढ़ने पड़ते हैं कि पैवस्ता रह शजर से उम्मीदें बाहर रख. और अगेन ये हर दफ़ा जो है ना इरफान भाई मुझे ज़रूर बुला लेते हैं मेमन प्रोफेशनल फोरम में, तो मेरी रिक्वेस्ट यही है कि मुझे कोई ऑनररी आप कोई वो दें आप, मतलब यार ये तो कोई बात ही नहीं है कि हर दफ़ा बुलाते हैं आप और कोई मतलब रिकग्नाइज़ करें आप इस बात को। बट अगेन आई थिंक कि इस फोरम के हवाले से के अगेन इज़ बीइंग यू नो गेटिंग द हेल्प ऑफ फ्रॉम योर गाइज। आमिर गाज़नी यहाँ बैठे हैं, सादिया दादा इस वक्त जो कि अगेन फ्रॉम द सेम कम्युनिटी, शी इज़ डूइंग अ फैंटेस्टिक जॉब। बहुत मुश्किल है कराची का डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सिस्टम चलाना, जहाँ पे कि लियारी भी है और डिफेंस भी है और लोगों की एक्सपेक्टेशन है। मतलब शी इज़ अ लेडी एंड शी इज़ है नहीं यहाँ पे, और मैं तो कहा था उनको भी बुलाएं आप लोग, बिकॉज आई वुड से it is a more difficult job than me. I can assure you, it's a very difficult job, and she is doing it fantastically well. दालिया साहब हमारे जो हैं वो भी HR के हेड हैं, सो मतलब कई आप कराची शहर का है, अगेन इज बीइंग यू नो सर्विस्ड बाय फैंटास्टिक मेमन्स पर से। सो अगेन थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर इनवाइटिंग। आई एम सॉरी एक और काम पे जिसमें मोहम्मद अली साहब ने मुझे फंसाया हुआ था, मैं वहाँ पे था तो मुझे देर हुई, तो मेरा कोई कसूर नहीं था इसके अंदर, बट आई थिंक आमिर ने कवर कर ली सारी चीज़ें। सो अगेन थैंक यू वेरी मच एंड इंशाल्लाह मैं बहुत पॉजिटिव हूँ कि इंशाल्लाह ताला ये जो भी चीज़ें हो रही ना, इसका पाकिस्तान के पावर सेक्टर पे पॉजिटिव इम्पैक्ट होगा, और अगर पावर सेक्टर पे पॉजिटिव इम्पैक्ट होगा तो देयर इज़ नो रीज़न वाई द अदर सेक्टर्स विल नॉट बेनिफिट। और हम ये जो देख रहे हैं उड़ान पाकिस्तान हो गया और जितनी चीज़ें हैं सबसे इंशाल्लाह ताला अच्छी एक्सपेक्टेशन है। सो अगेन थैंक यू वेरी मच एंड अल्लाह अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
Thank you so much, Mone Saab, for your wonderful words. So the wait is over. Now it is time for us to hear from our learned, our very own chief guest, His Excellency, Mr. Mohammad Ali. Mr. Mohammad Ali needs no introduction, especially for the Memon Professional Forum and the Memon community. He is an alumni of Memon Professional Forum and a pride of our Memon community. He is a true visionary and always extended his care, concern and support for the Memon Professional Forum. He has been part of our earlier events as well. When we discussed with him about this event, so he just abruptly said, "Kab aana hai?" So, sir, here we are, and we are with you. Thank you so much for your unconditional support, sir. Mr. Mohammad Ali has been serving as the Special Assistant to the Prime Minister since August 2024 on power with the status of State Minister. Before that, he has also been sworn in as the Caretaker Federal Minister for Ministry of Energy to look after matters of energy, power and petroleum. He was sworn in on August 17, 2023. He has also served as the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan. Please, with a huge round of applause, please welcome our chief guest, Mr. Mohammad Ali.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you, Irfan. Thank you, Mohammad Ali Bhabha Saab, and all the organizers of MPF for inviting me here. It's always a privilege and an honor for me to attend MPF functions. और because यहाँ पर Women Professional Forum के काफ़ी members बैठे हैं, तो I think it's pertinent to note that MPF was the one which gave me scholarship for 2 years when I was doing my BBA and MBA at IBA. मेमन प्रोफेशनल फोरम के जो आज ऑर्गेनाइजर्स हैं, जो पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं, जो मेंबर्स हैं, पास्ट के स्पेशली जो हैं, उन सब की बदौलत ही माय लाइफ चेंज्ड फ्रैंकली, बिकॉज IBA 4 years at IBA was the event in my life which was a life-changing event. So I've not been able to contribute much time in the recent past, but there's a great organization, and inshallah I hope we all continue to do good. So thank you for having me here tonight. I would also like to thank my dear friend, and I've not done it before in a public forum, but I thought today is a pertinent time because this is the first time I think Asif and I are sharing the stage as speakers. And I would like to thank Asif because he has been a consistent support to the energy sector professionals in the country. हमने कई बार आसिफ से कहा कि आप सरकार में आएं, ज्वाइन करें, आगे आएं, but he is one of our, I would not say unsung hero, but sort of an unsung hero who has contributed a lot with a single-minded focus कि पाकिस्तान का energy sector किसी तरीके से fix हो. And when we were doing our 2019 report, one of my colleagues, Noman, is here and he knows it. Asif helped us tremendously in that. So he was a key element in our 2019 report. And since then, we have had our differences in the very recent past on some issues, but otherwise he has been a great support. So thank you, Asif, for everything you've done. So आज की जो talk है, although topic is power sector reforms, challenges and opportunities, but I've split it into two parts. The first part is the IPP's renegotiation that we are doing, and other speakers have not touched upon it because I'm the one who is actively involved in that. So that's the first part, and the second part I'll talk about the power sector challenges, reforms and opportunities. So let's begin with the IPP's renegotiation because this is something which has been the topic, burning topic recently, which has been on minds of a lot of people, especially businesses and professionals. And I will touch upon the historical background and factual details and my views. And I'll try to be brief in this because I know we are already slightly late. इस टॉपिक के ऊपर because I'm involved in this, I was involved in this in the past, तो मुझे खुद को भी अक्सर I struggle with lots of questions because there are questions related to ethics, morality, right and wrong in this. And sometimes there's no right and wrong. Things are a bit nuanced, but we need to think a bit deeply and we need to find answers. और answers में थोड़ा time लगता है. So because I've been living with this for the last few months, and I thought before coming here, how do I put it forward? So I think there are two different questions to ask here. First question is renegotiation of contracts a recommended option? That's one question. And the second question is renegotiation of contracts acceptable in certain situations? And they're two very different questions. And the answer to these two questions is where the crux of the debate and the differences of opinions lies. The first question is renegotiation of existing contracts a recommended option? No. It never is. I believe most of us, if not all, agree on this answer. It is never a good thing for country or any participant, any party to open contracts. But the problem and the answer lies, and the difference of opinion lies in the second question, which is renegotiation of contracts acceptable in certain situations or not? That is what we need to answer. उसमें हम सबके अलग-अलग जवाब होगा. कोई हाँ कहेगा, कोई ना कहेगा. But frankly, globally, individuals, businesses and countries face situations where one party believes there are reasons which make it acceptable to relook at the contracts. The other party in those situations will probably not agree with this, but one party believes that. And it is this situation in Pakistan which has been faced as far as IPPs are concerned. Now we have to remember that IPPs are a utility which sell electricity to the government of Pakistan under a single buyer model. Now it is unfortunate, but the reality is that we have not been able to move away from a single buyer model to a competitive market where market forces determine the supply and the prices. IPPs are a regulated business which are required to make reasonable return under a regulated regime, and they cannot be making returns based on the market demand and supply functions. It's a regulated business. If IPPs are set up at a higher than actual cost, if their expenses are inflated, and if they are paid more than their actual expenses and the agreed profits, then who bears the brunt of that extra cost? It's the consumers who will bear that extra charge. In reality, the wealth gets transferred from consumers to the owners of IPPs. Any transfer of this wealth or payment beyond the agreed return is questionable. And in case this happens, then a natural question to ask is if the renegotiation of contracts acceptable or not? The question which I asked earlier. Or should we continue to live with the contract and continue to pay payments which are more than envisaged by the policymakers when the contracts were initially signed? Now, one can say that we've signed the contract, no matter what happens, let's continue to live with this. But at times, it is just not possible. And that's what Pakistan was and is facing. Here it is also important to highlight, unlike the impression given in certain quarters of media and conversations, that Pakistan probably keeps engaging in acts which hurt the investment climate. There's a perception. But at the time when IPPs were making huge amounts of profits, there were other sectors also which were making huge amounts of profits. Some examples are banks, fertilizer companies, E&P, some of the food companies, some pharma companies. Now, despite the fact that banking is a licensed activity and a regulated activity, despite the fact that fertilizer and E&P sectors are linked with the government through gas supply or sale contracts, no renegotiation has taken place. Because their profits may be high, but there is no element of what was agreed initially in the contracts and what actually happened. There is no element of either a misreporting, a misrepresentation, or a wrongdoing. Now, these are all questionable, and people will have different views, but there's no suspicion of any wrongdoing. So the impression that Pakistan keeps renegotiating, I think that needs to be dispelled. A lot of us know that banks have made a lot of money by lending to the government, but I don't think we have gone and said, okay, let's renegotiate their profit margins. Yes, government has imposed taxes, that's a different story, but contracts or terms have not been renegotiated. So that's one thing I want to highlight, that we need to dispel this impression. It is the IPPs that we keep going back to again and again. And then there is a history to this issue. In 2012, it just happened that I was the chairman of SECP, and we looked at the profits of IPPs, and we found them to be making profit which are higher than agreed. And we ordered an inquiry, but the inquiry was stayed by the courts. In 2017-18, NEPRA tried to do the same, and that was also stayed by the courts. So we are all humans. So if things are being looked into by the regulators and they're stayed by the courts, anybody would say, why? Why aren't the regulators being allowed to look into these things? Payments of fuel and O&M, as per the financial records, are higher than what was spent. And there have been instances, and we have seen those, and I can't name those, that some renewable plants were set up at the same time, same technology, with massive differences in their capital cost. So there is a suspicion of over-invoicing. It's unfortunate that we have not, that it's very difficult to go to the money trail, and it is very time-consuming activity. We have not done that. But in a regime where consumers are responsible to pay the debt, to pay the interest, for all expenses, spare parts, insurance, if there's any payment over and above the return which was agreed in US dollar terms, then the contracts become questionable. And it is these acts which have led to the government's decision of relooking into the contracts of IPPs. Now, globally, what happens in other countries? Is Pakistan different? Now, in developing countries, there have been instances of renegotiation. However, in developed jurisdictions where the judicial system is strong, the regulators and government institutions are diligent in regulating these entities as well as utilities. And they ensure that incidences of misrepresentation and wrongdoings are either avoided, or if those entities indulge in any wrongdoing, then penalties are imposed. It is the job of the institutions to look after these matters. But unfortunately, in our country, our institutions failed to perform their duties diligently. and temporary committees and task forces have to be set up to do the work which was the responsibility of the institutions. So it is very unfortunate the way we have to handle these situations, the way we had to renegotiate in 2021, the way we have to renegotiate now. I wish the institution would have done their job. Because they failed, and because that's where the problem lies, we have to come and do it, and frankly, it does hurt the image of the country. So this is not right, and this needs to be fixed. So among all the issues that we are discussing today, I think one of the big issues is the capacity of our institutions. Asif and Ruhail and Amit touched upon good governance. Yes, that's a big issue in the country, and we need to talk about it. So I've just shared some facts, some background of the IPP's renegotiation, and I leave it to you to make up your minds. Obviously, my speech was a bit one-sided, but you can make up your own minds. Now we go to the second part of the topic, which is the main topic. What is wrong with our power sector? Now, if we go down to listing the issues, the list will be very long. And frankly, a lot of it is already touched upon by Monas and Amir and Ruhail and Asif. So I would not go into the details of those. I might briefly touch upon this, but I'll try to go towards what are the bigger issues and how to solve it from a macro level. And I think we need to go to the root causes of these issues. Whatever issue, I mean, not being able to fix the net metering regime is a problem, but there's a cause behind it. Not being able to sell discos, excess supply, transmission constraints, these are the problems. But what are the causes of these problems? Why do we end up with these problems? We might solve these problems over the next 6 months or a year. I mean, these are not very, very difficult problems to solve. 80% of these. Now, the competitive market might take time, the distribution, ka jo long-term concession agreement or privatization, that might take time, but some of these problems in the next 1 or 2 years can be solved. Most of these can be solved, net metering and transmission constraints. But we need to address the root causes, because unless we discuss those, unless we address those, the problem will not go away on a permanent basis. Now, I would like to highlight 3 issues, which in my opinion are the root causes, 3 issues, and then I'll talk about 3 solutions. First, the big issue is government's footprint in the energy sector, and that has been touched upon. Within the power sector, except KE, our entire distribution and transmission is in the government hands. Around 50% of our generation is with the government. And if you look beyond the power sector and the petroleum sector, a large part of our exploration and production, a large part of our oil marketing through PSO, and our entire gas transmission and distribution is controlled and managed by the government. Now we need to ask, what is the responsibility and what is the role of the government, and what is not the responsibility and role of the government? Running businesses should not be the government's role. And neither is the government equipped or trained to run businesses efficiently. If the government footprint was not that high, there would have been no circular debt in Pakistan. There would not have, it is just not possible, because private sector would have borne those losses, and the government was not responsible to continue to pay interest and a lot of other things, the distribution losses that we talked about, the recovery losses that we talked about. So government footprint is huge. We need to introduce competitive power markets and affordable wheeling charges on an urgent basis. And these will be the real reforms which will reduce the government footprint in the generation sector. Similarly, as already talked about, we need to privatize discos, and maybe, and I've been a proponent of this, that we should think about privatizing NTDC. And frankly, that idea came from Asif, that why do we have NTDC in the government sector? I thought about it and I read upon it, and some countries have already sold the transmission system. So we need to think about it, because NTDC doesn't have the capacity to plan and to install the infrastructure which is needed to transmit electricity. So one big issue, government footprint. The second big issue faced by the power sector is our inability to plan properly. That has been a huge issue. We are not good planners. And this lack of good planning is linked very, very closely with the first issue, which is the government footprint. Lack of effective planning is primarily due to absence of market forces in the decision-making process, and which has led to our government officers being responsible to make decisions related to demand and supply, decisions related to fuel mix, investment, location of our energy assets, pricing. Everything is decided by the government functionaries. Unless we have the market forces determine these, we will continue to face the problem that we are facing. And frankly, a large number of these decisions have gone wrong. In past, we have seen periods of excess supply, and when we have excess supply of electricity, we stop adding new supply, and then we end up with a period of excess demand. And these periods of excess supply and excess demand are playing a huge role in the price mismatch and the price distortions that we are facing today. So the planning function, because right now government footprint is large and it will not reduce overnight. But the planning function needs to be improved. Who are the people responsible for making IGCEP? Have you ever taken a stock of the past IGCEPs? How were the tariffs decided? Why were they decided like that? How these tariffs were calculated? What was the rationale behind this? So the planning function overall needs to be looked into. The third issue, besides the government footprint and planning, that the power sector and frankly a number of our sectors are facing is lack of accountability for the decisions being taken. There's a massive lack of, there's no accountability. Decisions can go wrong. The decisions that we are taking today or we'll take tomorrow, in 5 years or 10 years, people might say with hindsight that some of those decisions were wrong, and that's part of life. But there have been decisions taken or not taken in the past which frankly fall either in the domain of incompetence or in the domain of vested interest. And both need to be looked at, incompetence and vested interest. Now, decisions like excess supply that we are facing today. I think Asif showed the slide that out of 40,000 megawatt, the peak demand in winter is like 10,000 megawatt. So 30,000 is excess supply in winters. Transmission constraints. We all knew, the institutions in the country knew in the last 10 years that excess supply is coming in the south, cheap supply is coming in the south, and demand is in the north. Why wasn't investment made in transmission? Who was responsible? Excessive dollar-based returns, excess payments in the past under various heads. Now, these have been decisions which have been adequately highlighted in the media over the last 5 to 10 years, adequately highlighted. But no accountability has taken place. Not a single official, not a single decision maker, be it in the regulatory body, be it in any other institution, has been taken to task. Forgetting the accountability, there is not even a report made to learn from these, how to avoid these. So, accountability is missing, and that's one of the issues that we need to resolve. So, at a very broad level, if we fix these three issues, I think government's footprint needs to be reduced, the planning function needs to be improved, and accountability has to be brought in the system. I think a lot of our problems at a lower level will start getting answered gradually. Now, the next natural question is to ask is, what needs to be done to fix these three big issues and avoid them in the future? So the three solutions in my mind, which I would like to discuss, and although they're very simple solutions and we all talk about it, but I think this is what we need to fix in the country. And if we focus on these three, our issues will automatically keep getting resolved. But before that, we need to remember that the energy sector globally is going through massive transformation. And besides fixing our existing problems, we will also need to keep pace with the changing world and the new technologies. Now, I'm highlighting this point because this aspect, this change, this transformation, this reality is important in the solution that I'll talk about. And if we want to address our issues in a holistic manner, we will need to focus on few areas, and which should be the area that if we focus on those few areas, then automatically other problems will get answered. And the three areas are people, structure, and decision-making processes. If we fix our people, if we fix our structuring, and if we have the right decision-making processes, I think everything will fall into place over a period of time. As far as the people are concerned, we need to start with the right blend of people at the highest level in the country. And the highest level is the ministry. NEPRA, CPPA, PPIB, they're all NTDC, DISCOs, they're all institutions. But who decides the board of directors in these institutions? Who decides the members? Who decides the CEOs? Ministry has a huge role to play in this. So we need to get a blend of civil servants and professionals in the ministries, because neither civil servants alone nor technical experts alone will be able to solve our problems. We need both. These two sets of people are trained differently, and decisions of the future will require input and discussions between, input from and discussion between these two sets of people. Unless we get the right blend of civil servants and professionals in the ministry with the right expertise, we will not be able to solve a problem. And this is where we need to start. We need to start somewhere. If we get the right, we are doing, in the task force, we are, in the last 5 months, I think we have achieved quite a lot. And a big reason for that, a huge reason for that, is the analysis cell that we have created. We created, on day one, we took people from NEPRA, from CPPA, from SECP. These are the people who had worked with us in the past. We put together a team of 8 people from our government institutions. But they had to gel together as one team. And they were the right people with different skill sets. And that team is the one which is the brain of this task force that we are doing. So if we have the right people in the ministry, automatically things will start falling into place. Now, besides people, the second reform we need is at the structure level. And Asif has covered it in detail, so I'll very briefly touch upon this. And the world has moved away from separating power from oil and gas. Energy matters irrespective of the source of energy. And in the world of the future, most equipment will be electrified. And the source of electrification can be oil or gas or nuclear or water or anything. Now, we will need a structure where all elements related to energy are housed under one ministry. Now, we have one Ministry of Energy with 2 divisions, but it has to be one, under one leadership. Because the decisions related to power are affected by the decisions in petroleum and vice versa. Besides structuring the ministry rightly, we also need to structure the regulator rightly. We need, as Asif talked about it, we need one regulator, one energy sector regulator, because the decision taken about the power pricing, the tariff affects the pricing of gas, is impacted by the price of oil, etc., etc. So we need one energy ministry and one energy regulator. Now the structuring also goes beyond the ministry and the regulator. For example, NTDC, which is a transmission company. Should we have one transmission company throughout the country? 10 discos. That's the structure. Do we need 10 discos, or we need 5, or need 20? What should be the ideal size? Now we have one disco in Quetta, Kesko in Balochistan, huge geographical coverage, less dense, and we have one disco in say Lahore. So what's the rationale? Under what logic are they created? We need to question these things. CPPA, now we're creating ISMO, which will look after the competitive market. Is the structuring right? So the entire ecosystem of the power sector needs to be looked at in terms of structure. Should they be function-based structure within different entities? Should they be any other way? These need to be questioned, because unless the structure is right, we will not be able to get the right people. If you do not have a legal department in an entity, you will not have a lawyer. If you don't have an economics or finance department, you will not have an energy economist. So the people and the structure are linked, and they need to be fixed. Now, the third change that we need is our decision-making process. We need to question the decision-making processes which were involved in some of the major decisions that we have taken in the past. Now, frankly, if our decision-making process was correct, we wouldn't have ended up with the problem we are facing today. So there's something wrong somewhere. We have excess RLNG, which we are trying to defer some of the cargoes, but we have load shedding. Industry is asking for LNG, the captive debate that is happening, but we are saying we will not give you LNG. We will disconnect you. Can we disconnect them overnight? No. Some of them do not have the connection. Some of them need reliable grid, and I believe the reliable grid is possible. I don't agree with that argument from the industry, but these decisions have to follow a certain process. How are the decisions taken, and who are taking the decisions? Are they based on data? Are they based on discussions? Or are they based on very, very brief conversations? So the decision-making processes need to be looked at. And frankly, these decision-making processes can only be fixed if we have the right people and the right structure. So this solution is dependent on the first two which I talked about. So I know that there are a number of issues, and they have been talked about by the speakers, and most of you, I'm sure, have read about them. But if you want to fix these, we will need to start somewhere. And if we go down to solving at a tactical level, we will solve 3 problems, 2 more will crop up. So if you get the right people, if you have the right structure, and if you have the right process in place, automatically over a period of time, things will fall into place and things will start getting better. Somebody has to analyze and look at every problem, and automatically the solutions will keep coming up, because the expertise and the knowledge and the analysis and the intellect is already there in the system. We just need to use it. So ladies and gentlemen, it's true that our energy sector is facing problems of affordability, accessibility, and sustainability. The 3 objectives, which are the objectives of our energy ministry and probably most ministries around the world. And there are various issues, and issues are complex. However, if we have the resolve to solve them, it will not take more than 2 to 3 years to solve significant majority of these problems. And unless we solve these problems, and unless we provide affordable energy to all segments of our society, our progress will be hindered, and the quality of lives of Pakistanis will not improve. So this is a real problem, but it's a solvable problem. It just needs the right people, the right resolve, and some time to fix it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mr. Mohammad Ali, for your wonderful insights pertaining to Pakistan's power sector reforms, challenges, and opportunities. Our country needs visionary and energetic people like you, and your efforts are commendable and are being acknowledged by people and investors as well. So I've just done a small number crunching. So from the time since Honorable Mohammad Ali Saab, he was sworn in on the August 17 as caretaker finance, Federal Minister for Ministry of Energy, to look matters of energy, power and petroleum. So I've picked 5 public sector stocks, those that are listed on the Pakistan Stock Exchange. So OGDC was priced at 99.50. It is currently trading at 218 rupees, an increase of 120%. The price of PPL has surged from 74.2 to 187 rupees at close of yesterday, an increase of 152%. SSGC has crept up from 9.2 rupees to 42.30, an increase of 360%. SNGP from 45 to 98.20, 116% return, and PSO from 123 to 389, an increase of 216%. So, a big round of applause for his vision and his efforts. I would now like to request our President, Honorable Mr. Mohammad Ali Baba, who is also the Chief Investment Officer at HBL Investment Management Limited, for his closing remarks and vote of thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yaqub. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, and a very good evening to all of you. As we bring this enlightening seminar on Pakistan's power sector, reforms, challenges, and opportunities to a close, I would like to take a moment to reflect on what has been an evening of meaningful dialogue, insightful discussion, and inspiring ideas. On behalf of the Maiman Professional Forum, I extend heartfelt gratitude to all of you for your presence and active participation, which have made this event a resounding success. MPF has always strived to create platforms for education and awareness, and tonight's event is another step in that direction. With over 1,600 professionals from diverse fields, MPF takes a pride in contributing to the well-being of our community. And I am confident that today's seminar will offer valuable insight that could help shape the future of Pakistan power sector. First and foremost, I would like to express my deepest appreciation to our chief guest, Mr. Muhammad Ali, Special Assistant to the Prime Minister. Sir, your visionary insight and thoughtful reflections on power sector have provided valuable framework for addressing the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. Thank you. To our distinguished speakers, Mr. Muhammad Amir Ghaziani, Syed Monis Abdullah Alvi, Mr. Rohil Muhammad, and Mr. Asif Ali Qureshi, I extend my sincere thanks. Your expertise and perspectives have illuminated critical aspects of Pakistan, of the energy landscape, and inspired actionable solutions for sustainable progress. A special acknowledgement is also due to the managing committee and organizing team, whose dedication and hard work brought this event to life. Your meticulous planning and execution are the foundation of tonight's success. Thank you. I would also like to thank our past president for their continued guidance and mentorship, which have been instrumental in the growth and impact of MPF over the past years. To our sponsors, we deeply appreciate your unwavering support, which enable us to hold such impactful events. Last but not least, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all our participants. Your enthusiasm, engagement, and commitment to seeking solutions for Pakistan's energy challenges reflect the spirit of progress and collaboration that drives the MPF community. Ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude tonight's proceedings, let us take inspiration from the knowledge and ideas shared here. Whether as a policymaker, professionals, or concerned citizens, we each have a role to play in transforming Pakistan's power sector into a driver of sustainable growth and prosperity. As we move forward, let us continue to network, exchange ideas, and explore collaboration that can contribute to a brighter future for our nation. Thank you once again for your presence and participation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us all on the path of progress and prosperity. Ameen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Muhammad Ali. Now I would like to request His Excellency Mr. Muhammad Ali to come in front for mementos. I would also like to request President MPF Muhammad Ali Baba to come in front to present the mementos. First of all, I would like to request Mr. Asif Ali Qureshi to receive his memento. Next, I would like to request Mr. Rohil Mohammed to receive his memento from the Honorable Chief Guest. Mr. Mohammad Amir Ghaziani. So kindly come in front. Mr. Monis Alvi. I would like to request our past president, Mr. Ashraf Bawani, to come on stage and present the memento to our chief guest, Honorable Mr. Muhammad Ali. सर डिनर पे हम नेटवर्किंग कर सकते हैं. Thank you. Sir, I would like to request all the participants to come in front and have a group photo. I would now like to request all the past presidents to come on stage for the group photograph with the participants. सर आपके साथ पार्टिसिपेंट्स के साथ I would like to request all the managing committee members to come on stage for a group photograph. Speakers and for a photograph. आप उतर जाएं. वहाँ खिंचवा लेते हैं ना आगे. Dinner is served.